Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:01. First order on the agenda is public comment. And Kyle and Lori, I know that you have registered public comments, so if you'd like to speak to it. I know I've had conversations via email with Lori and explained to her our process, but if you'd like to speak, we'd love to listen.
Yeah, we were just inquiring about the hay ground at Heritage Farm. We're over on Birch Mountain. We have a bunch of beef cows we're raising, and we're looking just to kind of expand what we're doing. And in order to do so, we need to secure a little more feed for our animals. And we submitted a letter just kind of explaining what we're trying to do. And our ultimate end goal is to eventually have a roadside stand where we can sell our meat. I'm Kyle, the fourth generation, and we're trying to raise the fifth. And to keep this going in Bolton, that's kind of just our interest here. And to be able to succeed with it, we'd like to at least try and get some more hay in Bolton. So we were just inquiring about, the possibility of maybe doing something with Heritage Farm. And we really didn't know how it works, if there was a lease or we had to bid on it or what the actual process was. So we're just kind of in the early stages of inquiring about it.
Okay, well, thank you for that. As I explained to Lori, the town currently has a lease with another individual in town. That lease continues on an annual basis unless one party notifies the other in writing by November 1st. So we will be taking it up with our facilities and grounds subcommittee, and we'll then let you know if this is something we're willing to put out to bid after we've had that discussion. So I would guess we'd have an answer for you by mid-September at the latest. And we can get back to you then. Will mid-September work in your time frame?
Yeah, that's fine. We're just inquiring for next year's season, for next spring.
Okay.
So then if it doesn't go out to bid, is it just automatically rolled back to the farmer who's doing it now?
Correct. We do have an existing lease that continues until one party notifies the other in writing that it will be canceled. So if we were to cancel it, I would imagine we'd have to go through some sort of a bid process. And I don't know whether the other farmer would be interested in that or not. But it is something we will discuss in subcommittee.
Okay, yeah, if you could just please let me know, that'd be great.
We will. Both Josh and I have your contact information. So we'll be back in touch with you as soon as we have more news.
All righty. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. You're very welcome. And on your screen, there's another response that Josh got from Brett Gottler, who wants to increase recycling to weekly instead of bi-weekly. And we've had this conversation several times before that until we're in a position to renegotiate the contract, this is pretty much off the table. Anybody else on the Board of Selectmen want to comment on either one of those comments?
No, I think your suggestion of the subcommittee going over the hayfield is a good idea. But get back to him with what.
And we will try to get that committee meeting scheduled towards the end of the month, if not early August. Let's see, next on the agenda is oh, Pam, are you here for an agenda item or did you have something else to talk about?
He
Sorry.
had his 300th on the
Okay.
agenda, so I was waiting for that.
Okay, thank you. Next is public comment on the minutes.
We have approval of the minutes. I briefly read them, and obviously I am not the best editor, but I think I'll move to accept them as presented.
I do have one correction,
No, good. Yeah,
or
no.
actually an addition, and that is item 2 under public comment. We should attribute that to Paula Meyer, Meyers, of Country Club Road.
Oh, you don't have the full name, right? I'll modify my motion to accept that change.
Okay. Bob DiPietro, did you second that?
Bob, you there?
We may have lost Bob. I will second that,
you didn't.
but until Bob returns,
We
we don't
just got
have a
him.
quorum.
He's here.
I'm here.
Oh, okay, great, great. All right. Did you second those minutes?
No,
Okay,
I
I
did
will.
not.
Would you second them? I made the motion, and there's just the three of us tonight, so,
Yeah, I'll second it. That's fine.
all right, thank you.
Bob DiPietro, did you have any additions or corrections to the minutes?
No.
Okay, thank you. So all those in favor of the minutes as corrected, please say
Aye.
aye. Aye, opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, moving on to appointments. As it is the first meeting of the fiscal year, we have the appointments that are up on the screen. These are the list of people who have responded and are interested in reappointment. We're still waiting to hear from others. Due to the coronavirus, everybody is slowed down just a little bit. But I'd like to move that we reappoint all of the listed individuals for their respective appointments for the term as stated on the board.
If that's your motion, I'll second it.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on these appointments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That also is unanimous. Okay. Moving on. Josh, I only have correspondence on items on the agenda. Do you have any other correspondence?
I do not know.
Okay. So we are up to subcommittee reports. The minutes that are up on the screen now were shared pretty much with you, not in writing, but in person at our orally rather at our last meeting. We do need to consider tonight, however, whether or not we want to participate in the virtual net metering auction that's happening later this month, or if we want to sit back and wait and hope that the program is continued for next year, which at this point is unsure. Any proposals from anyone would be have to be filed by July 17th. I know at our last meeting, I'm trying to find it in the minutes. that we talked about deferring to a future meeting so we could analyze other professional companies, and we have not yet had the opportunity to do that. So my recommendation is that we sit this one out. We do have the solar project coming for Bolton High School, and if it doesn't happen for this year, I hate to take the savings and throw them away, but I also am very hesitant to put the town into an agreement where we haven't yet had the opportunity to truly vet the entire agreement. So.
Well, I concur with that.
Therefore,
No, go ahead.
I
Bob.
would table this.
I'm sorry, Bob, I didn't hear you.
Therefore, based on what you just said, we should table this. Shouldn't we?
Yes,
So I moved the table it.
okay, so Bob DiPietro moved to table.
Yeah, and I'll
Bob Moore, are you seconding?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further discussion on that? All those in favor of the table, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? That passes unanimously. I buried my agenda.
Properties and facilities.
Properties and facilities report. Do we have anything? Josh?
As of, we are fortunate to have both and Rupert on the line in case they want to give any comment about the status of the new town garage. I know that the last time we spoke as a group, it had gone through a semifinal inspection, and there had been, I think, a couple of changes to be made. Jim and Jeff, I don't know if there's anything else to be shared at this point.
It has passed final inspection, and I communicated that with Millennium Builders earlier this week. And I don't know if there are any customer service issues that would be John's bailiwick but from a code perspective, the building has passed inspection.
Excellent.
So we should, that means we can begin utilizing the building, correct?
Well, we're working on wrapping up the paperwork and issuing a certificate of occupancy, but
Oh,
yes, at this point, it would be appropriate. And I did send John an email that said that, from my perspective, as soon as he was satisfied and he got an invoice, it would be okay to pay the bill.
good.
Okay, great. Open space and acquisition, we have, the only thing I have to share with you is that I did hear from the landowner of the property we've been discussing. I did make him aware of our offer, and I was told that we are nowhere near each other, and thank you very much for your time. So I think that's what we all expected would happen. So we will stand by there. Bolton Lake, I know that we had a weed treatment last week out there. I haven't heard whether or not it was successful. I don't know how long it takes to actually kill those weeds and get them under control. Josh, have you heard anything?
I haven't heard about the success of it. I do know that Solitude, it already has, I believe, 2 more treatments planned for this year to make sure that whatever actions they are taking continue to remain effective, because I know that this is a weed that has been fought before and will probably have to continue to be fought
Okay.
for quite a bit of time.
All right. Moving on to the 20 budget report. Josh, can you pull that up?
Yes, I can. Hold on just 1 second.
Gary, while he's pulling that up, would you like to introduce yourself to the rest of the Board of Selectmen?
Sure thing. Hello, everybody. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes, awesome. So my name is Gary Silver. I'm the newly hired media coordinator for the town of Bolton, Connecticut. A little about me. I was born and raised in Easton, Massachusetts, and I graduated from the University of Connecticut with a bachelor's in digital media and design about a month and a half ago.
And so far, he's been doing a great job and been very responsive. And as you can see, he has a great background photo of the Heritage Farm. So
Thank you.
welcome, Gary. And if you're at Town Hall, he sits in the same office as Kathy McCavanagh in the desk formerly who was there? Heidi
Deirdre.
and Deidre.
Deirdre, yeah.
So moving on to the budget. Thank you, Gary.
Yes, thank you, Gary. I do want to explain a little bit about why you're not seeing FY 19, 18, and 17 numbers in this expenditure report. And I didn't realize this before I asked for it from Jill, but apparently in the past you have not received an update on the previous fiscal year's expenditures in July. Usually that waits a little bit to August, and not for a bad reason. As you'll see here, there is, as I scroll down, a pretty large number at the bottom there in terms of what it appears will be leftover funds. But I need to remind each of you that at this point in time, not all of the bills are paid. I know we're still, I just received the engineering bills today, and that will be a sum of money. We haven't yet received our legal bills for the month of June, and there's quite a bit more that will be paid out of that number. But in any case, I wanted to let you know where we are right now in terms of processing that, and you know that while this number will be lower a month from now when I give you another report, we did very well this year in terms of beating expectations. And I can answer any questions that you might have about any given.
Josh, those transfers that we're dealing later today, they're already factored into these numbers?
All except for a few transfers that were made just yesterday, but they were relatively small.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I actually think we are well within the ability to deliver back to the town the amount that we committed to the Board of Finance at the budget. And if things continue to go as they have so far, we may be actually over that. So one thing that is happening that we did get recently is we talked in the past about the unemployment and how if someone who was employed even part-time by the town of Bolton in their look back period gets laid off, the town of Bolton has to contribute to their unemployment, and we're charged on a retrospective basis. The bill we got for unemployment this month did contain some of those expenditures. So I don't see that going away in the near future, but I do believe we transferred some money just the other day to cover that bill. So I do think we will end up still in a good place when all is said and done here.
And one more question, if I may, and it really has to do with all this COVA stuff we've been dealing with and FEMA funds. We were eligible, weren't we, for some FEMA funds? Are those expected in the next fiscal year, or have we gotten them? Or
no, we've not gotten. In fact, we haven't even filed our application yet for FEMA funds. We'll be doing that in July.
Okay.
The first round. The school has not applied for theirs. They have to first apply for their education grant from the state of Connecticut, and they have applied for that grant. So they'll be joining us in the FEMA response after we get that. And the rental for the trailers and most of our other expenditures related to FEMA, related rather to the pandemic, should be covered by the FEMA grant.
That's good. I'm just mentioning that just to state that that'll help our surplus going
Yes.
in next year.
Yes, because those expenditures are showing in the
Right.
budget expenditures
Okay.
now.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Any other under reports and updates, Josh?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Ongoing business. I don't believe that there are any items in the budget transfers that require Board of Selectmen action. Do you agree, Josh?
That's correct. Everything,
You do have a copy in your packet of all of the transfers that Josh and I have signed off on to date, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Actually, I'd be happy to defer to Josh to answer any questions. But most of them-
I think I understand it because there are a number of them being transferred into that personnel issue, and that's to cover the new, the person who just filled the vacancy, right? Is that?
Actually, that is we had a temporary person
Oh, that covers
in
that
that
person?
job, and that's what that training is for.
Oh,
Because the
okay.
temporary people are not in the salary lines under the
Right.
state's new accounting procedures, so that is
Okay,
where we had to
Right,
thank you.
transfer
I-
into
I-
part-time payroll.
okay.
And the same thing's happening in the town clerk's office, but it's going the other way since we upped Cindy's hours, the assistant town clerk. She's now on payroll rather than in part-time payroll.
Got it. Thank you.
So
Now it makes sense.
that's what's going on there.
Okay. That's the only questions I have.
Other ongoing business. I don't have any, Josh.
I do not.
Okay, we're on to new business. The opening of Indian Notch Park is next. I want to give you guys an update on the weekend. It was 4th of July weekend. We had police there, state police, in overtime from 8 a.m. till 7 p.m. On Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. On Friday, there were a large number of people who parked at the boat launch area and walked over. The resident state trooper shooed them away. We asked him to not issue tickets unless it was either a repeat offender or someone became uncooperative. There were no tickets issued all weekend long. On Saturday, things were also pretty quiet. On Sunday afternoon, Brian was down at the park and turned around and saw a car driving in. Turns out they or someone else, don't know because nobody saw it, smashed the lock on the gate and proceeded to drive the car in. Brian told them they were trespassing, didn't realize that the lock was broken at the time, escorted them out, and discovered the lock was broken. He came to my house. We got some supplies to lock the park up again, and John's crew replaced the lock on Monday morning. So Sunday evening, there was one individual who probably came within a couple of hairs of being arrested for his refusal to leave the park. But in the end did end believing that Brian would arrest him and did agree to leave. So that's the weekend update. Josh, I'm going to let you talk, and perhaps Jim, comment on, and John as well, if he's still here, about considerations for reopening the park and how let's focus on how things have changed since we last talked about this in last month, actually.
Right. Jim and John both, please jump in with any thoughts and recommendations that you might have as I go through. What you see up on your screen in front of you, for those of you who are able to join us via computer today, is a quick summary, and it will look relatively similar to you as it did, because of course a lot of this information you saw at your last meeting. And that, I think, underscores the fact that there isn't a lot that's changed in the past month. We continue to see a downward trend in Connecticut. We're starting to see a pretty large upward trend in the majority of states across the nation. And that puts us in a difficult position, I think, as a town, to try and figure out how to keep Connecticut on the right track where other states have started to meander and really falter in that line of thinking. So we continue to have three options available to us. I will say that after speaking with John, with him, and several others across town staff, and with our resident state troopers, it does seem to me that options 1 and 3, which are more of our absolutes, either having the park open or having the park closed, would be preferable to having walk-ins at this point in time, given the fact that it seems to be a little bit harder to enforce issues as they come up if you're letting some people into the park, but not necessarily everyone. As we go through, I'll just briefly touch on some of the challenges as we've already discussed, and maybe some new thoughts for you. But option 1 is to allow for limited entry. That would really be kind of an opening, quote unquote, of the park. I will say that nothing has changed from the perspective of deep. The state parks continue to have all of their inland and even small coastal beaches closed to the public at this time. There are recommendations for how far apart each towel should be, each beach blanket should be, has not changed. And the bottom line with this option is that it is difficult, I think, to have this many people come in and maintain social distancing. It's perhaps even more difficult to try and explain to folks why we can't let all 100 cars that roll up on any given Saturday afternoon, but rather just limiting the entry to the first certain number that's established, whether that be by the board or by town staff's discretion. And I think the other key factor here is the cost that's associated with this. I do a little bit further down have a quick breakdown of just, it's a rough estimate, admittedly, but I think it captures a bit of a picture of what opening the park would look like financially. Option 2 would really be to continue what it is that we've been doing now. As Sandy pointed out, that in the course of a long weekend, we've had two out of those 3 days were relatively okay with some gentle police presence, and then the third day, not so much. And it was probably good that Brian was there and he was able to tend to it so quickly. It has its pros, it has its cons. On one hand, certainly you still at least allow folks to have some access to the park and to be able to enjoy that. On the other hand, it does suggest that people should be going into the park, and folks will take advantage of that, as we've seen. Option 3 is total closure. This is really just modifying the current operation to not allow for any walk-ins, which will probably lead to some of the same challenges as in option 2. It just provides a more cut and dry, black and white an opportunity for our residents. In terms of the finances for this, options 2 and 3, we won't really see much of a financial impact aside from the fact that, if we wanted to end up paying the resident state troopers a little overtime to go down to the beach to be enforcing whatever decisions made. But for option one, for hires alone at the very minimum, and I've used a few different numbers here. So of course, this body decided on the wages to be paid to lifeguards earlier this year, as well as a gate attendant. And we've discussed the possibility of having a park ranger at the park who would really be responsible for addressing folks who have strayed a little bit from the guidelines, and who would be responsible for calling the resident state troopers in the event that there's a vast variance from the guidelines or just some unruly behavior in general. If you take all of this into account, you consider that the park would probably be opened with the number of lifeguards we want to hire 5 days a week. That would be Wednesday through Sunday to accommodate for the most heavily trafficked days. For 8 hours a day, which traditionally at Indian Notch Park has been from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I've calculated that out, and it seems like it would be $22,000 in change to allow for those several people to be hired for the period of 7 weeks from July 15th through September 2nd. Now, that being said, it will be offset a little bit by the fact that we would be taking in income from folks coming in through the gate, but that income is not going to be the same level that we've seen in the past, because we will have to, if we were enforcing the governor's orders, limiting the number of people who can access the beachfront. By my calculation, if you're referring to the sandy area of the beach, you could fit safely about 36 6x6 beach blankets, which by my estimation, it's rough math, but that means you could probably have 36 cars come in and be relatively within the governor's guidelines. So these are the options available to us. Obviously, on one hand, option one looks very reasonable when you're trying to think about how to best accommodate people in town and our residents. On the other hand, option one is probably the most difficult to execute feasibly in terms of hiring folks in a short amount of time, and in terms of the costs that are associated with it. And with that, I think that's where the policy question comes in from the Board of Selectmen as to how much money are we willing to spend to help out our residents at this tough time, and does it need to be at Indian Notch Park?
Well, if I may, some comments. One of the things, thank you, Josh, for all that information. It's been very helpful. I think we waited a month to see where the state would be. I mean, if the state had, at least on my account, the state were willing to open up their inland beaches and lakes, it's one thing. But if we are the only ones to do that, and the pressure would be just incredible. I think our cost of policing would be a lot higher than what you've anticipated. I think it would put far too much pressure on our staff to try and maintain all the proper distancing and all the regulations that are in place. I think when we first discussed it, we thought perhaps that structurally things would be different, and we wouldn't have the pressures that currently exist. With that in mind, I really don't see any way where we can actually open it. The best I think we could do is maintain our current policy. That's my comment. Is there an issue? Hey, Josh, if I may, is there, I don't know if John is still on there. Is there an issue with maintaining the current policy? I know the big push at the 4th of July, that's always a big deal, but is it sustainable without a lot of issues and pressure on staff?
Bob, the problem that Brian and Doug now run into is when they try to have someone leave the park, they're just saying, "Oh, we're walking through," when they're actually swimming. It's hard for them to actually come out and say what you can't be here when they kind of can be.
Right.
Yeah, one thing Brian has asked for is a written set of procedures if we do open the park, so that they can have them and hand out to someone who may be in there and say, these are the rules, you follow them or you leave. And also, if we decide to close the park, that we establish a set of rules that says the park's closed, you may only walk in and walk out, and you may not swim, and therefore they can hand it to them. And if they refuse to comply, they're trespassing.
And wasn't there, if I recall prior, there was an issue on the restrooms too, right? As far as trying to meet all the codes and everything else. And that's a real difficulty if you're going to allow swimming and you don't have access to the restrooms.
Correct. Although I don't know, there are people swimming there now, and I don't know what they're using for restrooms.
I won't comment on that one, but
Yeah, I think we all know.
yeah, right. Okay. So as I understand, well, if I may, and I'm not sure if I heard, but Johnson, your deal with it on a daily basis. Do you have a recommendation for us to consider on this? Whatever I move on tonight, I really would like to have it so that staff can work with it, and our town government can work with it.
We would definitely lean more towards option 3.
John, I couldn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Bobby, we'd lean more towards option 3.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
John, and Jim Rupert as well. I also like option 3. I hate for that to be the solution, but I don't want to be the attractive nuisance. And I think if we do select option 3 as a bare minimum, we need to put park rangers there at, or a security force 7 days a week during daylight hours. What do you think about that idea, John B. or Jim R.?
Right. This is Jim. I think having an authoritative presence is certainly would be a positive impact. I think the other two things, Josh really nailed this pretty well, but I think the state DEP has made the intimation that their inland waterways and small saltwater beaches will remain closed for the duration of the season. And I think the other thing that's important to consider when making this decision is that, the governor is very much rolling back on the next phase of reopening. And that is, for a reason. That has a lot to do with, the things that they're seeing in other states, and just trying to be sure that, Connecticut continues to be able to move forward, because if we go backwards, it's an additional economic impact. So I think those are additional things to be considered as you're moving forward with this decision. I know it's not an easy decision either way, because, all of our jobs are to serve the public. And anytime we make a decision, that we're going to close something or not make it available to the public, that doesn't come easily.
So yeah, well, what you say makes a lot of sense, and trying to make a decision that is fair, equitable, and meets all of our concerns. You're almost at that position of not opening. My concern, if we do open, the one thing I would say, I concur with Sandy and everyone else, that we should have a security personnel there. And if we do it, we should have a trained security person there rather than just have, someone we hired to do that. It shows an authority.
John, I'll just ask why you not chose option one.
John
Can
B,
you say that one
did
more
you,
time? I missed it, Sandy.
Bob DiPietro asked why you did not choose option one, which is partial open.
Just from what Brian has been telling me, it's easier for him if he has a concrete yes or no, as far as the park being open.
Did you get that, Bob D?
Oh, you're muted, Bob.
Just trying to understand it.
Josh, did you have an opportunity to determine what a professional security force would cost us an hour?
Unfortunately, I have two quotes that are coming in later this week. They were not able to get them in before, actually in both cases because of vacations on their end. We're not able to get it in before this meeting. But we'll have those quotes coming in. And one of the security groups that I contacted, they're based out of Bridgeport, but they've done a lot of work up in this area, especially in stores. And the other one is based in East Hartford. If anybody has other ideas of places I should reach out to, you can let me know. And I also know that I did reach out to Coventry in case folks want to see it. I do have the park ranger job description that they've developed. And I know that their range of pay is between $12.50 an hour to, I believe, $14.50 an hour.
Yeah.
And that's much less than we pay even our van drivers and about what we pay our summer park maintainers. And I think we need a stronger individual in those roles.
Yeah, you're looking at something closer in the 20s for a good security, well, a good trained security person out there. That's
All right. What I'd like to request is that we put a motion on the floor and that we authorize Josh as part, actually, I'll make the motion, that we adopt option 3, total closure of Indian Notch Park for the remainder of the summer. And we authorize Josh and I to determine the appropriate security to maintain limited access and neighborhood parking control for the remainder of the summer.
I think that covers it. I think
Bob DiPietro, you're muted again, but I think I read your lips to say you seconded that.
Yes.
okay. All right.
All right. Is there any further discussion?
No, I think
Hearing none, all those in favor of option 3, total closure of Indian Notch Park, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
And those Bob's lips said aye.
Thank you, Bob. That is again unanimous. All right. Josh, let me know as soon as you get that security stuff and we'll.
You've got it.
I think one of the critical questions we'll need to ask is how soon can they be there after we say yes?
Right.
All right, moving on. Selecting a Bolton Poet Laureate. I want to show you a brief video. Josh, can you pull that up, please? We
Yes, I
have
can.
Bessie Reyna on the call with us tonight. And she is my suggested nominee. And take a minute and just watch this about 5 minutes on her accomplishments.
Like the beautiful blue curly cues of one enormous blown glass sculpture, poet Bessie Reyna spins words into a tangle of imaginative ideas.
He lined up all the blues he had gathered, but still something was missing. If only he could capture Miles Davis' kind of blue inside the glass. If only he could capture blue tang fish and make them circle like a blue carousel.
With each image, rhythm, and carefully shaped phrase, Raina's poetry celebrates the many colors and shades of life, often drawing on personal memories and reaching as far back as childhood. Her work also dares us to listen and look closely within.
She thinks she was there once, a little girl with long blonde curls and no shirt. She thinks she stood next to a tall palm tree. She thinks there was a photo. At times, she can see the beauty of the sky, the clouds about to burst, the ocean in the distance. She thinks she was smiling, her face not yet printed with permanent frowns under passionless clouds. She wonders if it was a dream. Now there is no one left to tell her otherwise.
Born in Cuba, raised in Panama, and one of Connecticut's important literary voices, Bessie Raina creates poems, stories, essays, and articles that often navigate between two cultures and languages, raising questions and challenges for her that aren't always easy to handle.
How to survive in those two cultures at the same time without losing my identity, without losing the Hispanic person in me. I write in Spanish. I do a lot of stuff in Spanish because I don't want to lose that.
As a result, her award-winning works are published in both Spanish and English, appearing in poetry collections, textbooks, and literary anthologies. A Latina Citizen of the Year, she also writes for Identidad Latina, and for 9 years, her popular opinion column ran in the Hartford Courant. Yet she insists that while her words may be set in ink, her ideas are meant to be interpreted in the moment and communicated by the spoken voice.
While you come home, open a beer,
watch TV. While you settle down in the same old chair and talk about how tough things were at the office, while hiding how often you asked the secretary for a date, how often you and your drinking pals tried to pick up girls at the bars, while you decide which bar you'll head for tonight, or submerge yourself in the TV commercial and wait for dinner, she tries to forget the tasteless catcalls she put up with on her way to work, how she was propositioned by the customers and the boss.
Here's her husband behaving out in his daily life, the way these guys are behaving towards her when she walks down the street.
Yeah.
It's inescapable for her.
For me, when I write, I don't want to just reach women. I want to reach everyone because I feel that until we all work together, until men and women really understand what we're doing to each other, we're not going to create a better civilization.
To me, that's part of the denial aspect that the...
And whether it's a discussion about gender, culture, or class, this master teaching artist for the state of Connecticut is committed to developing writers of all ages, encouraging them to trust their authentic voice.
Working with younger people and also working with 55 and over, which I just did for the Hartford Public Library, is just a way to share my love for literature and to tell people it's okay to say how you feel.
The complexity of any lasting work of art deserves to be studied, contemplated, even respected and admired. Like Dale Chihuly's celestial work, the same easily applies to Bessie Rayna's wondrous collections of bilingual poems and stories. But then, if you asked her, she might just prefer to simply listen to the spoken word.
But my favorites were the gay boys, the ones others called cuecos, pájaros y maricones, who never talked about marriage and children, who didn't want to own me. My best companions.
For Spotlight on the Arts, I'm Ed Wurzbicki.
Thank you all for watching that with me. You have in your packet a draft resolution for establishing a Bolton Poet Laureate. And I think if you read through the resolved section, you'll find that Bessie, whose real name is Magdalena, would meet and exceed each and every one of those characteristics. So I moved that the attached resolution entitled Resolution Establishing a Bolton Poet Laureate be adopted, and further that Magdalena Reyna be appointed as our first honorary Bolton Poet Laureate for the term commencing immediately and ending on June 30th, 2022. And as noted in the resolution, a reappointment is possible. I think, is there a second to my motion, Bob DiPietro?
I second it for sure. Absolutely.
Thank you. And thank you, Josh, for highlighting that section. Bessie, is there something you'd like to add at this point?
No, I'm very honored that you're thinking of me for this very important position, because every town in Connecticut is being encouraged to have a poet laureate. And Bolton has been my home since 1989. So this is a very important thing for me, that I can share my love of poetry with the people of Bolton. And I want to thank you.
Thank you, Bessie. You are another one of Bolton's hidden treasures that we're very proud to bring out and share with the community.
Where have you been hiding all these years, you know? And
Bob, that must be, you don't read the calendars for poetry readings, I guess.
I'm afraid not. I was such a horrible student in college when it came to that.
Well, I'll make you change your mind.
Well, listening to your words over there, is I always sketch during the meeting, and I came up with some very flowery sketches. So you've already gotten to me. So
that's a miracle.
Yes, it
right.
is.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Bessie. And Bolton has appointed the first Hispanic Poet Laureate in the state of Connecticut. I'm very proud to know you, and thank you for accepting this honor.
Thank you for considering me.
All right, moving on. We will get you a copy of your appointment resolution in a suitable folder in the next week or so.
You don't want me to run away?
We don't want you to run away. We don't want you to run away. Thank you so much. You're welcome to stay. You're also welcome to depart and do other things, however you're.
No, it's been really interesting how you deal with all the different issues. I've been fascinated.
Oh, excellent. Next on the agenda is the 300th anniversary postponement. Pam, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
The Emergency Operations Committee has recommended that we consider, due to the health crisis, canceling all future events, with the exception of the farmer's market, which is outside in August, and having the Board of Selectmen to declare 2021 instead our official celebration year, I guess is the best way to put it. I know Bob has indicated to us that the parade committee has been discussing canceling the parade, and I just wanted to know if you have some comments.
Well, if I may.
Sure.
May I jump in? We did discuss it, and we considered, the various factors that limit our abilities to hold that parade, which it would include, is difficult for a band to even practice, let alone how can any marching group or a band have a social distance? And even if that issue were resolved prior to that point, having a social distance of people watching would be difficult. And let's face it, there are so many people who are concerned about being in any type of a crowd, small or large. And all those factors were considered, and with that, we fully concur that the parade should be postponed. We have a projected date of October 2nd to consider, which is that first Saturday in October.
2021?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. And also, if I can, since we're talking about postponements, I did mention that at the last meeting that the Hebron fireworks have been postponed. Now the new date is set for Saturday, June the 26th, 2021.
Oh, wow.
So it became impossible to do it this year to maintain any semblance of conformity to what's going on. So that's what's going on. That's in concurrence with the Hebron's Lion. So that's what that is. And okay, Pam, I hope I didn't steal all your thunder, but that's.
No, that's all right. The two chairmen met today with the subcommittee, Bob and Bruce, on the parade, and had those discussions and concurred that we felt that this is not the year to do it for all those reasons. My question would be then for the selectmen, with the parade canceled, and you're looking at all of the other events to be postponed. There is one ongoing one, and that is the passport that the Land Trust is doing. So that's something that is, I think, for you to consider as not to cancel it. Certainly it's a private organization that's running a private event. And then the second issue I'd like to bring up is your thoughts on the encampment, as that is an outdoor event and a bit different. So would you just give me a feedback on that? I'd appreciate that. And I will approach each of the members of the groups that are working on it when I have some guidance from your committee and your board.
Thank you, Pam. I'd like to read a communication I got from Arlene Fiano, chairman of the Heritage Farm Commission. She said that they feel their main concern for public safety is the access and egress. In other words, there's only one driveway. Everyone funnels in and out in a very defined small space. Should the Board of Selectmen have any ideas on a possible solution, for instance, a two-way entrance and exit which would direct human traffic flow, we would like to see the encampment planning continue. The reenactors are prepared for a 2-week cancellation should corona conditions warrant it. Our feeling is, with all events canceled, the encampment could be a welcome relief to what has been a very disappointing year. We will stand behind any decision the Board of Selectmen makes. We have the utmost respect for any of your decisions. If the object of postponing is to create a 300+1 celebration, I'm sure the reenactors would gladly come back next year as well. One question that comes to mind is how will canceling the event affect the grant monies from the National Park Service? If we're going to lose money, perhaps we should move forward. If the funds can be put on hold for next year's reenactors, may be willing to go carry the cost of the event this year. My experience in the past has been that there were fees to participate in events such as ours. Knowing that they are welcome back and the cost would be part of the 300+1 celebration. Josh, do you know the answer to the national park funding situation?
I don't know a very concrete answer. I did pose the question to Johnny Carowin, who's our contact over at the National Park Service when I last spoke to him. I did let him know that there was, of course, going to be a very serious possibility that we were going to be canceling the event, and that at least it would be discussed whether or not it should go on. And at that point in time, he did not give any indication that the National Park Service would refrain from passing that money along. And as several of you know here on this call, some of that money is going towards parts of projects that could be conducted this year, regardless of if there is a true event and crowd at the Heritage Farm. I don't know if he would want the money to be awarded this year and simply held in trust until next year if it were held then, or otherwise. But as of right now, even with my warning that there may be a last minute cancellation, he has been moving forward with getting us the money.
So, you know, one of the things that Pam mentioned, or Arlene's letter mentioned, and I had some discussions with her myself, that cancellation can be as much as late as 2 weeks prior to the anticipated date. And why I mention that is that would give this board an opportunity to see where things are for at least another 30 days, at least to our August, if not our September meeting, before we have to make a final decision on that. If you know, I would just hate to see it go as one of those. I mean, instead of having to have everything else, I concur, Sandy, with yeah, let's move it all into 2021. This one, as Arlene said, it might be a relief that if it, again, can happen, if it's safe, if it falls within the parameters, yeah. If not, obviously, it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
I'd like to add one
concern. Sorry, Pam, go ahead.
I'd like to ask one piece. To make this a tremendous success, it requires a lot of publicity, outreach to not only the people in town, but surrounding towns that would want to come. So I would ask that the selectmen make the decision tonight so that it's either, so that there can be planning for the outreach that needs to be done. So that would be my request. And if you're going to cancel, and I would totally understand that, because then we could do the whole year as 300.2 or 300+1, 300 revisited as a total package versus
piecemeal.
Piecemeal. So that would be my one request, that you make the decision sooner rather than later.
Yeah, the Emergency Operations Committee discussed this on our team meeting last week. And one of the concerns that was raised, and Jim Rupert, I'll give you a chance to speak in a second here as our Emergency Operations Director. With everything else around us being canceled, the Hebron Fair, the Lebanon Fair, the Eastern States, all of the 4th of July festivities. If Bolton has an event on the weekend of October 2nd, we could be deluged with a group of people. And if we are still at 100 people for an outdoor gathering, that could even limit the attendees as the reenactors, because I'm trying to think of the guy's name, Steve Gardner, I believe. who is managing on the reenactor side, is hoping to get 150 reenactors here. So that if we are limited to an outdoor gathering of 100, that would mean no public could come. It would just be the reenactors. And can you imagine the logistical nightmare we'd have if we'd done 3 months of publicity and then canceled this thing and they all showed up to have their fun, but we had to shoo all of the people who wanted to attend away. So that's one of my concerns right now. Jim Rupert, did you have anything to add?
That would have been my comment, Sandy, is about the limitation on numbers.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, a month ago, we were hoping we would be up at 300 for an outdoor gathering. And if that was the case, we probably would be just fine.
Right.
But at 100 for who knows how long, I don't know. My thought is, let's just go to 300 plus one.
I'm convinced. So if you'd like a motion that we postpone the
all
the only
town
one-
sponsored events.
Right. What about, let me just ask a question before I do that. What about that one that who's doing what's the ongoing one they're doing? They're going
Passport,
which doesn't involve any gatherings whatsoever. You want to?
correct. And it's also not town sponsored.
Right.
Land
Okay,
trust.
so we would not have a role in that anyways, correct?
Correct.
All right. So Pam, you're blocked.
Pam, you're muted.
You're muted.
My apologies. Is that better?
Yeah.
Much better. Thank you.
Farmers Market is also still on the goal list. It is considered a 300th event, even though it's an annual event. So as you're thinking of your emotions or your desire to make one package, please add that to the consideration.
Yeah, Bob, when you
Correct.
phrase your motion, please exclude the farmer's market, because as of now, the only things that likely will not happen at the farmer's market are the tasting tent and potentially Shady Glen ice cream.
Right.
Sandy, what do you do if it's over the 100 limit and that is still in place?
I would be shocked that the farmer's market gets over 100, because people tend to come and go, and we'll be working with Arlene and John Butramovich to be sure that the spaces are farther apart than they have been in the past, so that there will be almost self-imposed, almost mandatory social distancing, because people won't be clustered together.
Okay, well, I'm ready to do my motion now.
Okay.
That we do postpone all the remaining town sponsors events other than the farmer's market until 2021, when we will have one hell of a party for our town and truly celebrate the 300th as we should.
Excellent. I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Was that an aye, Bob DiPietro? Just say yes. Shake your head, yes.
Yep.
Thank you. That is unanimous. We have canceled all town-sponsored events. And Pam, I want to give a heartfelt thanks to you and your committee. You've done a yeoman's job trying to keep things moving, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you in 2021 for 300 plus one.
Well, we've just re-upped the committee, it sounds like.
Yes, we did.
All right, all. Good night.
Good night, Pam. Thank you for participating.
Thank you for having me.
Next on the agenda is setting the salaries for the Board of Selectmen for next year. Back in November, actually, I think it was December, we set the salaries for all other positions with the exception of the administrative officer and the Board of Selectmen. The administrator's officer's current contract goes until August, I'm thinking 7th, but I could be wrong on the date. It is after our next meeting.
Right.
And we'll be setting that salary at our next meeting. As Josh has put up the salaries as what was adopted in 2020, what was budgeted in 2020, and what is budgeted in 2021. I went back through minutes today, and the salaries for the Board of Selectmen that are currently in place, which is in the first column, the FY 2020 adopted, went into effect on July 1st, 2017. Since then, town staff has received a cumulative raise of 7.93%, while the selectmen have held steady. I do think it's time this year. I apologize for the quacking. That's my phone. So I would propose that we give the selectmen a 2.75% raise from where they are now. And that would bring them in line with their increase, in line with what most town employees are getting what union town employees are getting this year. And that's my motion.
Okay. And actually, normally I passing on these things, but I have to concur on this one. That you're right. Yeah, I'm glad you looked back and gave the history on that, because the board has, over the past number of years, not taking it just because of budgetary issues. I think this year, like a whole lot of other people, we find ourselves doing things we've never done before and trying to work through a lot of these issues. But even more than that, I think a modest increase at 2.75, I think, and the total amount that it increases is literally minuscule. And I think when you look at the work the board has done to really keep a sharp eye on the town expenditures, and that's reflected in what Josh presented us and what we should have as a surplus through the years. And that doesn't happen by any one person. It's a cumulative thing. The board, administration, and everything else does it. So this is the one time I feel that this is an appropriate move, and I will second that motion. And having been in Sandra's position as first selectman and knowing what it entails and what it doesn't entail, it's a modest increase, but at least it's some sort of a recognition of the work that's done in that office. Well, that's a second, a long-winded second.
Thank you for that. Bob D., do you have any comments?
Yes, I do. I think there's not enough differential between your position and salary and regular selectmen. I think this whole thing is kind of off balance a little bit. So I'm concerned about that. And I personally would like to look further into it and make some other suggestions. That said, I do agree with Mr. Mora that some percentage increase is warranted. It's just the difference between the first selectman and the other deputy and other selectmen. I think there's not enough distance between.
In your comments, Bob, I actually concur, and I think part of this year's discussion should be a discussion of what would be an appropriate compensation for the first selectman's position, regardless who's in there, whether I haven't been there a while and Sandra's there, a couple of terms. What it currently entails and what it will entail is far greater than what anyone had envisioned early on. So I think I agree with you. That's one of these things we as a board should look at for this coming year.
And I do know that, go ahead, Bob.
The color of my nose is not.
The Charter Revision Commission is also considering several options for the form of government. So that will be part of an ongoing discussion during this fiscal year. So we have a motion on the floor to increase all of the selectmen's salaries by 2.75%. All those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. Thank you all. That brings us, I believe, to
your reports.
The selectmen's report. I'm going to let Josh talk about COVID-19 because we're in the process of reopening things. Moving on for Sustainable Connecticut. One of the appointment tonight of our poet laureate was one of the items that gets us recognition on our Sustainable Connecticut application. I believe that we are in good shape at this point to qualify. We do have a couple more things to work on before our application is due in mid-August, but Patrice has been, and the summer intern Alexa Loda have been doing a yeoman's job getting those things done. Two other items under other. I don't know if you all know, but Dave Pila, our daytime resident trooper, retired as of July 1st. Connecticut State Police, are currently interviewing for a new daytime resident trooper. And in the interim, we have a temporary duty daytime resident trooper whose name is Douglas Bernier, Bernier, and he's badge number 941. He drives a medium blue Ford Explorer. Brian is now driving a silver Ford Explorer. So you will see that blue Ford Explorer around town, and that is our new trooper. So he seems to be a great guy, very eager, comes highly recommended from the staff at Troop, the supervisory staff at Troop K. So, they hope to have a full-time resident on board for August 1. So as soon as Josh and I find out, we'll share that with the board. And then lastly, for my report, I held a listening session a week ago tomorrow, where I invited some of the folks who had been the organizers of the peaceful protest on Black Lives Matter that was held on the Library Green a couple of weeks ago, to come to the Zoom meeting and talk to me about what their concerns were and what their concerns were about Bolton. As a result of that meeting, I'm looking at a couple of things, and I probably will do another listening session. I'm thinking it'll happen towards the end of July. And I'll make sure you all know when it's going to happen, and you are welcome to come. We probably had, I want to say, about 20 people participate on either the call or the Zoom call. Since that, during the call, I encouraged people to reach out to me privately, and I've had about 10 people reach out to me privately with concerns. So it is a conversation that we need to continue to have in Bolton. I'm not sure how that conversation continues, but it is something that we will be talking about in a subcommittee. And I'm not sure, I'd be interested in hearing comments from Bob about what subcommittee you think diversity and racism in Bolton ought to fall under.
Perhaps administration. I mean,
You think finance and administration? I'm not sure if it was finance and administration or human resources.
Well, human resources probably, but the thing of it is, it's a complex issue that covers not one single aspect or two. And it's not one that anyone is going to solve by one issue or two issues or three issues. But I do hope, quite frankly, because this has been on my mind a long time, that in the future, that the dialogues that occur become a two-way dialogue. Unfortunately, I found that it's been too much of a one-way dialogue, and that's not a dialogue. That's someone telling me. A two-way dialogue is I listen to you, you respectfully listen to me, and that's the only way we are ever going to solve these issues. And I will end my comment that way. Thank you.
Bob D., did you have something? You're
From
muted.
my experience, this topic in general could best be held in the personnel subcommittee rather than, even though it crosses all categories, I think it would be specifically focused in the personnel subcommittee.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you. We will let you know after my next list. I'll let you guys know when my next listening session is, and also let you all know what the subcommittee is to there. Josh, on to you.
Thank you very much. And I haven't had the chance to look and see but I see now that Jim is still on the line with us. So Jim, if at any given point in time you want to jump in and talk a little bit about COVID-19 preparations that we've been making, please feel free to go ahead. But I'll start out by letting you know some of the changes that we've already seen since we last met, and then we can talk a bit more about, or I'll share a little bit more about what you can expect to happen in the next few weeks. So first and foremost, fields and playscapes have been opened up. I believe that playscapes had already been opened up when we last met in June. If not, there's a bit of an announcement for you. And also ball fields. We will not be reopening the tennis courts between now and when they begin to have the renovations done. We just signed the paperwork yesterday morning to get that ball rolling. So the tennis courts, work on the tennis courts will begin in the immediate future. And actually, that really covers what's changed. As we've heard a lot tonight, the governor's orders haven't changed all that much since we last met, and that's largely because of the spike that we're seeing in not necessarily nearby states, but states around the country. And I think it's very important that we continue to follow in his footsteps and not confuse our public any more than I'm sure they're already feeling fatigued and confused. So some of the changes that you can see, that you will see in the near future with town facilities, I think that they're reasonable accommodations that now that we're in our groove, now that we have a bit more of an understanding and a bit more infrastructure in place of really how to manage folks within certain facilities, we can accomplish. So as of July 20th, Herrick Park will be reopening for rental space. That will be only, of course, for, we won't be holding any large town gatherings, the town sponsored gatherings. That'll be for private use only. We will be having anybody who goes to rent out that space sign a form saying that they agree with and understand all of the governor's orders and requirements of their indoor gathering. Right now, that's 25 people. And it still involves a level of social distancing in the event that they're people who are not currently living in the same household. And I imagine that that will probably deter a number of folks from wanting to make use of Herrick Park. But overall, it will be up to their own wisdom and their own decision making at that point. I've had the chance to speak with John Petromovich about his ability to clean after such an event happens. He feels confident that we can make use of this space, especially since the summer camp is not currently making use of Herrick Park because of several other governor's orders. Also, it sounds to me like, at least so far, it hasn't been very long, of course, but summer camp is off to a good start. And making use of Knott Road Municipal Center has been going relatively well so far. So I'll keep you posted about that as it evolves throughout the summer. The library will begin on July 20th to have in building appointments. So we will not be allowing appointments for the vast majority of requests. If somebody calls in and says, well, I'd really like to come pick up a copy of Moby Dick, would you please let me in so that I can go find it? We're going to continue to say, no, actually, if you have that specific book in mind, we're happy to bring it outside for you. But for those who really just need to get in and browse the library for a little bit, or if they need to come in and use a public computer terminal, we will be making that accommodation. And the library staff has been working very diligently to make sure that they feel protected in moving forward with this reopening, as well as to make sure that patrons will be safe. And by having it as appointments only and not as a free-for-all entry, we can better ensure that level of social distancing. Town Hall continues to be a point of some concern for me. I have had many conversations with other area administrators and managers, and last week, I believe last Wednesday, we conducted a conversation with the town staff where they were able to give us some direct feedback with a proposal to bring folks back into 100% of staff into town hall each week, instead of having our alternating 50% and 50% working from home or working in the office. And the bottom line is, especially as the governor begins to walk back his proposed phase 3 reopening, it doesn't make sense at this time to really be moving forward with having in a facility where you have a lot of people in a very small amount of space. When we have a system that's working very effectively, and I think that has really ironed out some of the kinks that we were seeing early on. So we have at the moment extended at least until July 20th, the A and B schedule that you've all become familiar with as I've described it. And we will be reevaluating on a 2-week basis thereafter further extensions. And that will largely be based on state guidance and of course, based on public health information as it becomes available in consultation with the Emergency Operations Committee, as we've had with a number of other items on our plate. No matter what, I do want everyone to know, I should say that Town Hall is open selectively to individuals who strictly need to, for some reason, pay cash on their taxes. They are being brought into the tax door and will go down, pay their taxes, and leave without going through any other part of the building. And we will be limiting that to the greatest amount physically possible. Will anybody be permitted to use the bathrooms in any public facility?
Hey, Josh, is that by appointment or do they just arrive and do that? How does that work?
No, we will be requiring them to make an appointment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with that, and I know also the use of the other, like town clerk's offices and that is by appointment. And I just have one question, and there may be some people listening, is that how far ahead do you have to make these appointments? I mean, if I were to call, like I'm 10 minutes away, if I could call and say, can I make an appointment? Is that a doable situation, or I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to get, an idea of how far ahead would someone have to call to do this?
Right. My understanding is that so far we actually haven't had anybody who's pushed their way into to have to pay their taxes in person.
No, I'm not suggesting that.
No. Right. But I can speak to the town clerk and also to Kathy, who's been starting to continue along with issuing pistol permits.
Right.
And they've been able to accommodate in most cases within 24 hours. In some cases, it's been more like 48. And that really depends on whose week it is necessarily to be in the office. And just us trying to continue to maintain our social distance between the A week and the B week. But
so as I understand,
it's good weather and people can be outside. We've had really no issues.
Yeah. So what you're suggesting is, as I think you're saying, you should call at least a day ahead of time. Is that what you're suggesting?
That is best. And we should probably, actually, Gary, if you're on the line, make note that any information that we put out from here on out, we should probably make sure that folks understand that 24 hours notice would be helpful.
Yeah, because that's the question I've gotten, and I think it's important that you set that out, and it just makes it simple. Nobody has a problem. Nobody's got a question, and that's how you do it.
Bob, I think the big thing that we're trying to avoid is to have multiple visitors in town hall at the same time.
Right.
And so that, even if you called 24 hours in advance and said, can I be there at 1 o'clock? If somebody else has already taken that time slot, they would respectfully push you off to a different time.
Right. Yeah. But at least that gives everybody a time to coordinate this thing. Yeah. Okay.
I think if we communicate a minimum of 24 hours for your appointments, that would at least set the expectation for the public that it may be longer, as opposed to you need 24 hours.
Yeah.
In which case they expect the next day. And
Josh,
other than a doctor's appointment that you schedule months in advance, there's not much these days that you can do in 24 hours. Kathy, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we have had quite a few people, I would say probably close to 10 people just show up needing things, and we have tried not to turn them away. We've always tried to just space people out and have a seat out on the picnic table. We'll help you as soon as we can. We do try and push people off with appointments, especially with pistol permits and things like that. But we have had quite a few people show up to the Selectmen's office looking for bulk passes and looking for information on things. And we've just literally just said, if you can have a seat outside, we'll be with you as soon as one of us is free. And it's worked out. So, we're trying not to push people off that are just showing up. We're not encouraging people to just show up, but we try not to just push them off and have them come back. It's easier just to take care of them while they're there. So, and the town clerk's office has been working with us really well to help people out as well. So.
Well, thank you and the other staff for doing that, but I don't think it's behavior we want to encourage.
Right. And I think getting out in front of it, as you and Bob have described, Sandy, and really trying to discourage up front, so that way there's an expectation of really calling ahead will be all the better. So
yeah, it makes it easier. You're going to get people who don't know just don't know it, and they're going to come up and then. And we all have confidence in staff who can handle it. You've handled it well in the past. I'm sure you can handle it well in the future. But it just makes it easier if you just have it. Here's what you do. And for those who happen not to know, say less.
Josh, if I might just add one thing, I think, for Bob and Bob who, don't generally participate in our emergency management meetings, one of the reasons that we're doing the A week and B week is because we do have such a small town staff that, one of the concerns is if we bring an illness into the town facility, we could potentially take out a large majority of our town staff all in one fell swoop. And by having the A week and the B week, we keep staff somewhat separated. And so we should be able to maintain continuity of operations in the event that some of our staff become ill with this disease.
What are you trying to be loud?
Yep.
Thank you, Jim.
Probably lost you again.
He's going in and out. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I said, that's too logical. Thank you, Jim.
Oh, it's too logical. Well, you know, it's one of the reasons that we came up with the decision. You know, you all know the challenges that we face at Town Hall with the facility that we have. You know, it's a very old facility that is not really not conducive to our current operations. And, you know, even though John and Josh and I have worked really hard together to use engineering controls to, you know, create separation so that our staff isn't stuck wearing masks all day long. You know, if we double the amount of staff in Town Hall at any one time, it just makes it a little bit more difficult in some of our spaces. We're trying not to share workstations, telephones, you know, computers, and things of that nature, just so that we can continue to keep our staff healthy, so that we can continue to serve the public that we've become accustomed to serving. And I think, you know, Josh and, you know, kudos to Josh and his team, that, you know, they've really made it possible for everybody to work nearly as effectively from home as we can from the town office, which is why we're not seeing a number of complaints.
Agreed. If there's nothing else on COVID-19 preparations, I can very quickly skate through a couple of items on administrators' goals, because as Sandy noted a little earlier in the call, we're on month 11 for me, and when we next meet, it'll be about a year, which means that, of course, I have a few things to tie up in the goals area. As you may remember, there were 12 goals that I had originally put forward, and the board highlighted 3 that they wanted me to pay special attention to. So I'll comment on those now and give you a more thorough report on the rest at the next meeting. First and foremost, the survey was the #1 item that was identified as a goal for me to complete this year. As was noted at the last meeting, the survey results are entirely up on the website. There's an executive summary and there's a full report. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I leave it to you to peruse at your own on your own time. Second is that there are a number of policies that we wanted to see updated. Of course, we've already approved, you've already approved as a board, the enactment of new financial policies. So thank you again for your time on that. And I want to let you know that before the next meeting, you will have a final draft of proposed updates to our personnel policies for your review and consideration. So be on the lookout for that in the next few weeks. And the third item that was asked of me for that special attention was really to bolster our web presence and social media. And I want to thank Gary for being on the call today to have the chance to say hello to all of you. I know that it was truly a brief hello, and that he has yet to have a chance to get to know you each individually. But he is the embodiment of what I've been trying to do in terms of improving our communications, and having this dedicated position to communications, I think is only going to continue to grow as a possibility, as an opportunity for us, and just simply as an effective tool, an effective community building tool. And that's not where it begins and ends. Of course, there's a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes, and there's a lot of work that Gary's been putting in day in and day out for the couple of months that he's been here. And if you have any questions about some of that work that we're doing, or if you have any thoughts that you'd like us to be considering as we move forward, please reach out. Even in this COVID world, you know, we have, Jim really hit the nail on the head. Everybody in Town Hall has been working nearly, if not just as, and in some cases more effectively, being able to work from any place, being able to have access to our desktops, to any information we need at any given point in time. And we're happy to meet with you. We're happy to connect with you over Zoom about your ideas and thoughts. And thank you for your support as we've been working towards some of these goals.
Thanks, Josh, for your kind words.
And that really covers my report unless there are questions from the board.
Josh, I have one question that I keep forgetting to ask you. I heard from the Secretary of State's office that every town is getting a ballot box. Have we gotten ours?
I don't believe that we've received ours, and I don't know if Jim or Kathy can contradict that statement.
I think it came. I don't know whether we actually took delivery or not.
I do believe we did get it, and it was delivered to us, and John and his guys took it and put it somewhere. So it came, something very large came off of a truck that we knew nothing about. And my understanding is that's what it was. So we will have to confirm with Liz, but I do believe that is what it was.
It's about the size of a large post box. Looks very much like the, if you can imagine a post box turned into our library book drop box.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was about that size.
That's what
it was. It was in cardboard, so we didn't have to.
And it's, I think, gold and silver. But it will need to be bolted down somewhere because it's intended to have people drop their absentee ballots into it and be secure. So we'll have to talk about where it goes because it needs to be handicapped accessible and drive upable. So that's going to and bolted down. So that's going to somewhat limit its locations since we don't have a readily available public sidewalk we can bolt it to.
I know that I did overhear at one point Liz Waters talking about where such a thing could be put. However, I don't know if she's landed on a specific thought. So I will follow up with she and John tomorrow and see.
Oh, she's not back till next week.
Right. Is there a start date as to when these are required to be in, or is it election day, or what's the story?
Bob, I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't. I'm just curious what
Yeah, you know about as much as I do now, and from what I've told you and asking my questions. So we do know that perhaps Bolton has one, and we do know that that definitely we need to find out how, where, and when.
Right. No, that's okay. So is my next motion appropriate?
It is.
Move we adjourn.
Bob DiPietro, do you want to second that?
I second that.
Okay, all those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, town staff, for joining us. I appreciate your input and your cooperation by working late at night. Bye, all.